Coach Becky from Doc Wayne again, here with Laurenne Ross on Doc Wayne's Champions Network. We're so excited to spotlight Laurenne today, a decorated U.S. Olympic skier. Laurenne comes to us from Athletes for Hope, a nonprofit organization that connects athletes with nonprofits around the world. And for those of you who have tuned in to our Kids in COVID series, thank you so much for listening. Doc Wayne has launched the Champions Network, which focuses on mental health for all and the power of sport. And today's segment is for our young champions and for those who strive to be their best every day. So Laurenne, I'm so excited that you joined us today. How are you doing?
Hey, Becky, thanks for having me. I'm doing well, thanks. Just getting my week started. This is a nice way to start it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Monday to everybody. And thank you so much for spending your time with us on this morning or really whatever time it is for those across the world today. And tell us a little bit about yourself and your athletic journey.
So I was actually born in Edmonton, Alberta in Canada. My family moved to Oregon when I was 7, so I'm a dual citizen. I started skiing when I was 2. My father used to ski race, so I kind of followed in those footsteps. And I started racing when I was about 7. And I've been a ski bum ever since, traveling the world. And actually, I did quite a few other sports growing up. I did gymnastics primarily. I did gymnastics fairly competitively until I was about 15. And at that point, I decided to focus more on skiing. And I did a couple other sports as well. I did some volleyball, a little bit of track. I pole vaulted and did hurdles. And I played a couple other sports for a couple, just a couple seasons, like basketball and volleyball. But
Yeah.
ultimately I decided to ski, when I was 14 or 15. And so I kind of put my energy into that. But I had a lot of other hobbies and passions on the way as well. I was really into music throughout school, especially in high school, singing and playing violin. And I think everything just kind of started falling into place for me as far as skiing goes. I made the U.S. ski team my senior year in high school. And I've been racing with them and traveling and skiing on the World Cup circuit pretty much ever since. And I'm 31 now, so it's been a journey.
Yeah, it sounds like such an interesting journey. And it's so good to hear that you played a number of sports and you had a lot of other interests. I'm also a violinist, so I didn't know that we had
Oh,
that in
cool.
common. Yeah. It's hard to find time for that these days, but
Yep.
for all our young champions out there, it's great to dabble in a lot of different sports and gives you a lot of different skills that you can apply to ultimately the sport that you do choose sometimes. Is there anything you want to add about that?
Yeah, definitely. I see a lot of kids and a lot of parents putting their kids into a single sport right from the get-go. When they are old enough to play, they start focusing. But I think it's really, really valuable to try to have some diversity in your movement. And I think gymnastics has helped me so much in my skiing. I cannot I'm so grateful for it because it's saved me so many times in crashes and just, with my proprioception and my athleticism. And I think I find that true for a lot of other skiers who have gotten to, the highest level, that they used to play a lot of other sports as well. I think it just really helps your body kind of learn how to adapt. And also it's just fun to play lots of sports. I still go out and play games with my friends whenever I can. I play racquetball with my mom. I play beach volleyball a lot. Go slacklining, mountain biking, and I really cherish those things. And I think they're really great opportunities to keep growing as a person and to keep growing in my sport.
Right. And you mentioned growing as a person, and we've talked offline a little bit about the skills that you use to stay mentally strong and mentally healthy. And you mentioned meditation. Is there some things that you can share with us about your meditation practice?
Yeah, so I discovered meditation and kind of the mindfulness practice back when I was about 18 or 19. Um, I actually had a really bad crash the first year I was on the US ski team, and broke my pelvis in a couple places, broke my back, had a dislocated shoulder, and wasn't able to compete basically all season. And while I was recovering, I was doing some research on how to recover the best that I could. And I just discovered, meditation and mindfulness, and started kind of bringing that into my life in a very, very mellow way. It was not super serious,
Mm-hmm.
but that's definitely progressed over the years in different ways. I started doing it on my own, and kind of, practiced by myself in a room in quiet with, sitting on a pillow or even just lying down,
Right.
just as a way to like bring my attention and my focus into myself and into my body, and kind of as a way to help myself heal. And I think, that's definitely progressed over the years as I've gotten older, and I've kind of, made it my own practice. I try to bring it into all the activities I do as well. But as of right now, I sit every morning for 20 to 40 minutes, and do a little mindfulness practice before getting my day going. And I find that it's a great way to, come to where I am and start off the day with some presence.
Yeah, it sounds very helpful. How do you think that's helped your performance?
Oh, it's helped my performance in so many ways. I think first and foremost, it's really helped with my focus and concentration, being able to stay where I am instead of getting distracted by thoughts or worries or fears or angers or sadnesses or whatever.
Mm.
It really helps to just ground me. And when I'm out on the hill, say I'm out inspecting a race course, I can stay focused and stay present and not get too caught up in worrying about results, or being scared of the conditions, or being fearful of potentially crashing and hurting myself. So it's helped in that aspect, and it's also helped me become a better skier because I do have that focus, and I can maintain that focus through not just through racing, but in training.
Mm.
So when I'm training all summer long and I'm working on fixing these problems that I'm having with my skiing, it helps me stay present and actually make progress with those tasks. And so those are two really big ways that it's helped
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, and I think that applies to really all sports, that focus piece and that ability to kind of tunnel vision when you're trying to perform or you're trying to work on a set of skills. Um, but with
Definitely.
meditation, I feel like it's so useful, but it often is misunderstood in terms of it not being a performance booster, let's just say. But it isn't thought of by youth as something that is friendly in terms of that you can go for a walk with that or you can personalize it, but it's thought of as something sort of you sit there and you're sort of like a Zen figure. Can you tell us some ways that you've used meditation in a more flexible way?
Yeah, definitely. When I started, I was also under the impression that I would sit and just, become enlightened.
Yeah.
You know, just sort of float up in the air and everything's peaceful and perfect. And that is not how meditation works at all. It's about getting to know yourself.
Hmm.
And I think the only way to get better is to get to know yourself better. But there are ways to really bring it into movement. And I have a lot of movement-based practices that I bring into my everyday as well. And that means like, I mean, even just from brushing your teeth and trying to stay mindful and aware of, how your hand is moving, or just trying to stay with your breath while you're brushing your teeth, even while doing the dishes, just trying to really mindfully be present and bring that presence into every activity. But it also is really wonderful to, just go for a walk and try to pay attention to everything that's around you, pay attention to your breath, pay attention to the way that your feet are hitting the ground, and the way the breeze feels, and then it's also wonderful to bring it into more extreme movements. Like lately this summer I kind of started skateboarding a little bit. I'm terrible, but it's terrifying, but it's really fun.
Yeah.
And that's such a great movement based activity to bring that mindfulness into, because it does take so much trust and so much focus to make progress. And so I found that's really helpful, in skateboarding, and I mountain bike all the time, which is also a great thing to bring it into. So just bringing that awareness into movement, I think, is a really, really good place for anybody to start.
Yeah, those are really good tips. And I think two things coming to mind. One is just that we're in a world that has a lot of uncertainty. And so just bringing it into yourself, like you're suggesting, of like, this is what I can control. I can control my breath. But also, as you're saying, like there's so many great options for sports that are outdoors, and you can use that mindfulness when you're doing fun things that you might not be good at, like skateboarding, to bring joy and happiness to your life. Those are great things. Do you have any other tips? You gave us so many, but any last minute tips on for people who are young people, or really any people who are hesitant about trying mindfulness-based activities or meditation specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I started to benefit my skiing. I started meditating in order to become a better skier. But over the years that I've done it, I've really learned that it's just made life better in general, and it's kind of made me a better person. It makes me more aware, not just in sport, but also in relationships, and relationships with myself as well, which are some of the most difficult ones. But yeah, I think it's such a general perspective shift to be able to get to know yourself and have that self-awareness. And I think the simplest thing you can possibly do is just come back to your breath. And that's something that I use still. I use that every day. I use that constantly, because that's such a good, easy way to bring yourself back to where you are. And that's how I find I make progress.
Yeah, that's great. That's helpful. And we talked a lot about meditation, but are there any other strategies that you use on runs down the mountain or just in your everyday life that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so actually, for meditation, I started using an application called Headspace,
Mm.
and it's really good, especially for beginners, because it helps guide you through a practice, and you can choose any length of time from 3 minutes to 45 minutes. So I still consistently use Headspace. I don't do it every single day, but it's a really good tool, especially when you're feeling kind of stuck or like you can't focus very well. It's a great guided practice application, and that's downloadable, on your phone or whatever. And then what else? I've been journaling quite a bit. I've always brought a journal along with me and written down, thoughts and feelings, and the way I want to approach things. And I find that just having a journal, having something to write on, even if it's just a pen and a random piece of paper, piece of notebook paper, just being able to sort of vent every day and, get things out on paper, I find that that's such a good way to process emotions and difficult things, especially in today's climate. There are a lot of, like you said, there are a lot of uncertainties, and I
Right.
don't know if I'm going to be racing this season. I don't know, I don't know what's going to happen next. And so dealing with that uncertainty is really tough, but I find that writing actually helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to play music too. I've been playing a bit of piano and a little bit of guitar and singing, and that kind of helps balance things out.
Yeah, these are great tips. And I think for young people who are listening, or really anybody, I think it's important to take away from what you're saying that you can personalize them, and that you have your list, I have my list. I use the app Calm, which is very similar to
Yeah.
Headspace, but you can find your own list of things that help bring calm to your life, or help you utilize meditation, or whatever your list of coping skills are. But they don't have to be what someone else likes, they can be what works for you.
Hmm.
Lastly,
Yeah.
because you're involved in the sport of skiing, I just want to ask you how you deal and how you cope with things mentally when things don't go well, because things can rapidly deteriorate on the hill. So what if you have a bad day, or a bad week, or perhaps even longer? Like, how do you regain your footing mentally from that?
Yeah, that's hard, and that happens all the time. I'm not every day, not every run is going to be a good run. So you're going to have bad days constantly. And I was going to mention that, when I talked about other things that kind of help me keep my balance, and one of those things is just playing, feeling like I'm a kid, like I'm finding joy in the
Mhm.
things that I'm doing. And when it comes down to it, I'm skiing because it's fun. I love it, and it brings so much joy to get to go fast, and I feel like I can find my flow out there. And so when I get stuck in a rut, which, that'll happen, sometimes it happens for a couple of months, you'll get stuck and you feel like you're terrible and you hate your sport and you don't want to do it anymore and you want to quit. And I just have to remind myself why I do it, and it's because it's fun. And so often I'll go out and I'll just go free skiing by myself, just to remember what it feels like to go fast and to actually find joy in my sport. And I think that's like the biggest thing for me, is just being able to play and remember that, you know, that's such a big part of what makes us human, is our ability to play and to find joy. And I think that's huge in sport, and it's really easy to forget.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. The pressure is real, no matter how old you are.
Hmm.
And especially at the level that you're at, things can go really well very quickly. But
Yeah.
on the World Cup level or the Olympic level, dreams can end very rapidly, I imagine. It's never happened to
Yep.
me, but I can only imagine. So, Laurenne, I appreciate your time, but I also wanted to give you the opportunity to ask me a question if you wanted to. You can also pass if you don't have a question, but I'm ready for it if you have a question for me.
Yeah, no, I am curious, because skiing is such a short burst of focus.
Yeah,
And so it's something that, it's not that hard to focus on what you're doing, especially if it's on a really difficult course, or, if you're in a really scary situation or something, max you're out there on the course for 2 minutes. And
mm,
so I'm wondering about, you played soccer, and I'm wondering about how your focus works when you're on the field for 90 minutes or however long
yeah,
you play for, and if you find yourself like getting distracted, or like how you're able to bring
sure.
that back. I'm just really curious about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Perhaps I'm gonna give you a curveball as an answer because I was a goalkeeper. Um, so I wasn't a midfielder. I wasn't someone who would really run for 90 minutes and have to stay in that type of focus where I was always receiving the ball and sort of looking for the next pass and things like that. But I was a goalkeeper who was focused in some regards, trying to keep everyone where they needed to be, but I only needed to sort of make a play every once in a while. And so I kind of had to turn a different set of mindsets on and off. And I think there's a part of your brain that kind of goes into a different mode when people cross over the half line, and then you start going into a different type of focus. But with that, I think there's a lot of self-forgiveness in that position of, if you're scored upon, you have to immediately forget and put it in the back of your head, and then say, I'm going to assess what happened after the game, and I'm going to sort of look into what I might have done wrong. And I can't think about that at the moment. So that's definitely a skill that is part of goalkeeping, and I'm needed for my team, and I need to direct my team in the moment, and I can't dwell on mistakes. So that's a big part of that position. And then there's the piece of letting yourself take a break when your team is on the sort of offensive, of letting yourself sort of step back, and then being in sort of like hypervigilant mode when they're in your 18-yard box. So that's a little bit of goalkeeping. But I also was on the track and field team in college as a hammer thrower, which is, I think, a bit more like skiing.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it's much more about muscle memory and about trust, and you actually just let your mental game sort of go, and you actually can't think about much, and you just let your training take over.
Yeah, that's a big part of skiing too. And I think what you said about letting yourself retreat and like kind of have this space that you come back to, I think that's a really important point, because it reminds me of, recovery and taking days to recover, and sometimes taking a week to recover, after like a really hard workout block or a really hard ski camp, coming home and letting yourself rest, and being okay with that, and letting yourself rest mentally too, is really important. Not always having to be 100% focused all the time. That's just too draining.
It's not possible.
No, it's not. And you can try as hard as you want, but it's like I said, it's really draining. And I think it's really important to be kind to yourself and to let yourself have that time that you need to recover from those high intensity moments and high intensity workouts and practices, and taking recovery time.
And I think the piece that's a little bit more well accepted in terms of terminology is like peaking, but in the mental health world, it's more about self-compassion. But if you focus 100% all the time, you're not going to make the saves that you could potentially make, and in other sports you're not going to perform at your best because you're not ready, and you absolutely can't focus 100% of the time. So it's about training yourself to sort of come down from that peak and then be ready when your team needs you. So that's I guess a bit about goalkeeping, and that translates to other sports too, but it's very different than the sports where you're only competing for seconds or a minute maybe. So I played a bit of both, and I enjoyed both, but they're very different in terms of their mental game. But thanks for your question. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time. We could keep chatting, but I think for our young people who are listening and watching, and for others, coaches perhaps, who are listening in today on Facebook Live, I just want to reiterate what we've talked about meditation. And it's true usefulness, but also that there's a lot of different ways that you can use it. And there's a lot of different types of coping skills that people use, like headspace or journaling or writing. But it's really important that you find the ones that work for you. And there's lots of people in your life that can help you figure that out and also point you in the right direction. And for those who aren't familiar with our work at Doc Wayne, we fuse sport and therapy to heal and strengthen at-risk youth. And we provide sport-based mental health services. But during COVID, we've been providing telehealth, and our newly launched Champions Network provides a virtual space that includes a training portal for coaches, clinicians, and teachers to harness the power of sport to improve mental health for all. And through all of these initiatives, we aim to reduce stigma and increase access, including this athlete spotlight that we've had with Laurenne today. And if you need mental health services or resources, please reach out to us at support@docwayne.org. And if you're interested in supporting our work and helping us reach more kids, please visit us at docwayne.org or text donate to 205-570-7251. And thank you all for listening, and I hope you stay healthy and happy today. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.